Hola, buenas tardes. Bueno, pues hoy, para terminar el ciclo de conferencias de este semestre en la Escuela de Arquitectura, vamos a contar con la presencia de Collective, que es un estudio de arquitectura radicado en Hong Kong y con bastante arraigo en Asia, aunque es un estudio también con una fuerte vocación internacional que trabaja también una serie de disciplinas alrededor de la arquitectura. Es decir, ejercen como diseñadores de arquitectura, pero también se dedican mucho al interiorismo, al diseño expositivo e incluso al diseño urbano. Se trata en este caso de un estudio muy joven que se fundó en 2015 y que cuenta actualmente pues, con 4 socios principales, que son Betty Ng, Chi Yan Chan, Juan Mínguez y Katia Lam. Todos ellos con formación internacional, pues, han estudiado en Harvard y en Cornell, por ejemplo, y también con experiencia en firmas internacionales como MA o como RCD Neuron, que han hecho que el estudio y sus componentes tengan en general una experiencia muy internacional también en lo que se refiere a la implantación de sus proyectos, ¿no? Han trabajado en la Unión Europea, en Reino Unido, en Rusia, en Norteamérica, en China, en Sudeste de Asia, Australia, África, incluso Oriente Medio. También cuentan precisamente con un equipo, digamos, de trabajo también de un origen internacional y en su práctica habitual también operan con una red de estudios de arquitectura, ingeniería y diseño a nivel mundial que les permiten pues, hacer colaboraciones, por una parte, para proyectos de escala mayor, pero también para proyectos con una intención transversal, ya que si bien Collective se ha dedicado, entre otras cosas también, a la realización de arquitectura al uso, también ha participado en áreas que se encuentran un poco en la periferia, digamos, de esta práctica tradicional y así funcionan como consultores de diseño, hacen investigación y también ejercen la docencia universitaria, por ejemplo, en la Universidad de China de Hong Kong. Se dedican también a aspectos que tienen que ver con la conservación del patrimonio, la escenografía, la lectura expositiva y el arte experiencial. Y yo entiendo que hoy pues, nos van a presentar precisamente una selección de todas estas prácticas arquitectónicas que están también un poquitín digamos, en la frontera con otras disciplinas y que se alejan un poco de la práctica habitual a la que estamos acostumbrados. Y seguramente pues, explicarán también, junto con edificios de pequeña escala, pues algunas actuaciones más recientes y algunas más grandes, como el Plus Museum o las exposiciones que han hecho recientemente para la Bienal de Taipei de 2020 con Bruno Latour, o, por ejemplo, su colaboración con Hans Ulrich Obrist. Y finalmente también pues, yo creo que mostrarán algún proyecto reciente de mayor envergadura, como el edificio comercial que tienen en Kingham Street en Hong Kong. Así que, sin más dilación, Juan, Betty, the floor is yours, so whenever you like.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Thanks for the introduction that I didn't really understand, but all cool. Thanks for having us today. I'm gonna, let's see, blue screen not possible. Okay, so I'm Betty. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. Today we will share a little bit on our work and maybe some background of the 4 of us who's co-directing this office. Our office is called Collective. And I just want to give you a little context of Hong Kong. Obviously, Hong Kong is a city in China. It's on the southern part of China. And it is in the area where the Guangdong province is. So the major city will be Guangzhou. And there's Macau, Zhuhai, and Hong Kong is actually a special administrative region. So the kind of, let's say this is Guangzhou, the capital of Guangdong province. This area here on the left side of Hong Kong is called the Pearl River Delta. This is a very important area for trade and whatnot all over the world. And Hong Kong has been a strategic port between China and the world for the longest time. So this is what Hong Kong is. Hong Kong as a special administrative region is actually only 1,100 square kilometers, but then we have almost 7.5 million residents. So officially, the population density is around 6,659 people per square kilometers. And Juan was telling me earlier that Zaragoza has around...
Yeah, I was taking the fact that around 750
people
per square
kilometers. So Hong Kong is almost like, many times over. But then the interesting thing is, this is Hong Kong Island, and this is Kowloon Peninsula. This is the famous Victoria Harbour. 75% of Hong Kong is actually green. And the urban area is actually only around 166 square kilometers. Hong Kong is very dense, and there's only very little area that is built up. So we can actually say in the urban area, population density can go up to 45,000 people per square kilometers. So this is the context of where we live, where we work. Our office is actually around this area in what we call Quarry Bay. Here you can see Central is where all the skyscrapers and towers and financial and banking are.
Can we do it from screen?
No, it doesn't work, yeah. So I will talk a little bit about ourselves. 2015, I left Rotterdam and I came back to my hometown, Hong Kong, and started Collective alone. I worked alone for a year and realized it really doesn't work. I then approached my ex-colleague Katia, and also Juan's my classmate at the GSC at Harvard, and also an ex-colleague at OMA to join, and also he was working at Soil in New York at that time, to join forces with me in Hong Kong. That's 2016. And then 2019, Chi Yan, she was at Herzog and de Meuron for the last 10 years. She left her job while she was building Dai Gun in Hong Kong, which is the kind of revitalization of the Victoria prison right in the center of the city. And then she joined us in 2019, and now the office is co-directed by the four of us. And you can see we basically have all these interesting relationship of overlapping as colleagues or from the same school. We have a lot of mutual friends. We have known each other for a while. And we started working together and lead this office together for the last 5 years. And she has been working in her experience, mostly lies in Herzog and de Meuron. She has been working on this project for 9 years of her career in Hong Kong. And she also worked a bit on M+ Museum, and then she joined us. Katia was at OMA, mostly project leading interior projects. This is in Shanghai. And Juan himself was working on the K11 Arts and Cultural Center in Hong Kong while he was employed at Soil in New York, and also Zhuhai College back in OMA. I myself started at OMA New York, worked on New Scene Hall's construction, where I graduated from at Cornell University. And then I came to Hong Kong and helped open the Hong Kong office in 2009 and worked on the West Kowloon Cultural District Master Plan. We lost to Norman Foster. And then I also, and then I moved to OMA Rotterdam and started as design director working with Rem Koolhaas. And one of the major projects that I led was the new Hermitage Art Repository in St. Petersburg, and also led the team to the winning project of Axel Springer that was completed last year by the OMA team in Berlin. And currently, myself, Juan, and Chi, we co-teach at Chinese University of Hong Kong on the Master Architecture Design Studio. The topic is Why Art Museum. We basically look into what we call the shadow art world. Everything that contributes majorly to the art ecology, for example, free ports, trade fairs, conservation spaces, storage spaces, so on and so forth, and to question whether art museum can come in a new form. It's a one-year research-based architecture design studio at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So I will pass on to Juan, and we will share with you guys some projects that we have been working on and that are quite dear to us.
Yes, as Colo was introducing earlier, we will be focusing for this lecture on mostly projects of exhibition design, but we are going to start with this project, which was the first collective project. Is a meat freezer and an office in an industrial area in Hong Kong, which is Fo Tan. which is not only in the natural area, but it's also where many artists in Hong Kong have their studios. This is the building where the meat freezer and offices are. It's an industrial, multi-story industrial warehouse, which is a typology which is very common in Hong Kong industrial fabric. It's a small, very small project in quite a large volume space, around 5 meters
5.6 meters tall.
5.6 meter tall, with a big glass and a balcony, and actually it shares the meat freezing facilities on the bottom, and then on top in the mezzanine level the offices. So the project was about treating the surfaces, let's say the envelope of the office, which we did using. I mean, the budget was quite low.
Yeah, so we basically didn't touch the space, and we didn't even repaint the space, right?
Yeah, it's not not repainted. Just
we built a second skin. Yeah.
Second skin, very basic lighting with fluorescent tubes, and on top of it a layer of polycarbonate. And then the flooring was made with galvanized steel plates. There was this sliding enclosure for, you can see here some photos, the opening, everything quite very raw, and in the bottom there was the meat freezer. Yes.
Yeah, so this is actually quite interesting because the project Juan just talked about is our first project, but then this is actually the first competition we won, and it's super small. So Asia Art Archive is a very important non-profit art organization in Hong Kong, obviously archiving Asian art. And Art Basel is very huge in Hong Kong also, because Art Basel bought Hong Kong Art Fair quite a few years ago and made it one of the biggest trade show in Asia. So we submitted a model. It is a pavilion for Asia Art Archive at Art Basel to host events. But what is quite interesting is it's outside the pavement area, so it's for public use. And the site is actually right underneath an escalator. And we have always worked with model a lot. And when we submitted the competition, we thought model will probably be the best way to show the context and how we deal with the context being underneath an escalator. So this is while we were setting up, and this is the pavilion in real position in a very generic Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center. As you see, there's an old school granite floor. We kind of take clues from it and use a recycled foam to create a very similar kind of acoustic, protected but soft landscape inside the pavilion while resonating the granite pattern outside. And you can see we're trying to almost like hide ourselves here with the pavilion underneath the escalator, responding to it, slanting the roof down, but at the same time also using a very similar reflective mirror material. This is the back of it. So it's sort of like come to this really sharp edge. And on the outer part of this is actually a thickened wall that showcase all these kind of archival material that Asia Art Archive have. But the most important thing is that it's an open forum, that they created all these free public programs for everyone coming to Art Basel to listen to artists talk or discussion and debates. And it's also a multi-story kind of atrium situation. So from above, you can also look down and see what's going on. So it's all about like, you need to be enclosed because of acoustic reason, but at the same time, you need to be open so people get to see you. It's a very schizophrenic project, we thought, and we quite like this. Yeah. And Juan will talk a bit about several occasions when we collaborate with M+ Museum. Maybe I can give a little bit background on M+ Museum. As I mentioned before, when I was at OMA, we worked on the West Kowloon Cultural District Master Plan. This is a project that has been probably lasting for the last 20 years, that Hong Kong wants to create a very big cultural district that is 42 hectares big. And inside there is this really big museum called M+ Museum, which is called the Museum of Visual Culture. It's not a visual art museum only, but it hosts design, architecture objects, ink art, and a huge collection of Chinese contemporary art donated by the Swiss art collector Uli Sig.
Yes, so we have done a number of exhibitions with M+. The first one happened in M+ Pavilion, which is this small building next to M+, which the M+ authority did to test drive exhibition concepts while the museum was being built. It has around 300 square meters, this kind of courtyard situation, and is open to the side.
Sorry, just to add a note, this pavilion was done, I think, around 2016.
2016.
Yeah, and M+ Museum itself was finished last month.
Yeah.
2021. So this is a way to showcase the collection and create exhibition and to test drive, as Juan said, for M+ Museum before the big museum is being finished.
Yeah. So we were commissioned by Ari Chen, which at the time was the lead curator for design and architecture at the M+, to do, I think it was the second exhibition in this M+ pavilion.
But the first for design and architecture.
The first for design and architecture. M+ has been building a collection for the last decade on focusing on Asia and Asian kind of atmosphere, like influenced the area of influence of Asia, and this was the first time that it was being displayed. We had to deal with, I mean, this is the front part of the pavilion. Here we have the opening to the exterior. This was not like the optimal situation to display archival material that required very specific conditions in terms of humidity and light. Hong Kong is a very humid place. It's very near the sea. Drawings require very small amount of lighting. The way we organize it, I mean, this is organized in 2 blocks. These blocks are more historical, and that has 5 rooms for 5 topics of the exhibition, and then it opens to this, let's say, open field for more contemporary works. The idea here was to be able to have a sequence between the different topics and be able to, for each room to have its like a specific character, so you could move from room to room and move to the spaces with different characters, basically. The first room was Japanese design objects. The second room, more like European-related objects. This corner was propaganda. This was a Hong Kong room. It was a postmodern area. Here we can see the model. As Betty said, we work a lot with models. There was this very thick walls that we did that would allow us to have niches to display the objects, but at the same time to place equipment like dehumidifiers, etc. Here some images. We can see like the Japanese room, the contemporary constellation with the open floor kind of situation. These very rare objects. This, for example, is a lamp made by well, it's Isamu Noguchi and I forgot.
Charlotte.
And Charlotte Perriand. So it's a collaboration between the two to make this lamp. And on the back you can see this Le Corbusier lamp, this Doshi cabinet, Janeret furniture. These are sketches for neons, very eclectic kind of collection. Some views of the space. I'm going to go a bit fast, otherwise.
Maybe I can go on the next project. Yeah. So the second project on the same space, we thought it's interesting to look at the different project on the same space, but a different topic, is In Search of Southeast Asia. So as I said, M+ doesn't just do visual art. This is the first show ever that they want to combine design and architecture collection with visual art collection, totally focused on Southeast Asia work. And again, the same space. And the idea is that we wanted this to really be porous. The idea of Southeast Asia for us, and you can see in a lot of their work and sculptural work, is that there is this porosity and lightness that we found is very, in quote, Southeast Asian. So the whole exhibition was designed with these perforated screen that you sort of see the behind, and then you see some color seeping through, a bit inspired by all these kind of like rattan and like the see-through screens of the architecture. And there is a lot of these very interesting archival material that we need to show, and we wanted to make sure that it's shown in an interesting way. And again, that idea of transparency and layers. So we created these bespoke tables that stack layers of acrylic, which have different kind of a void in between to host archival material. And also this upstanding kind of acrylic cases against tiny little slideshows to create a more kind of dynamic exhibition environment. We enjoyed this show very much. We think that it's very interesting to actually mix architectural work, graphics work, and visual artwork and sculptural work all at the same time under this umbrella of Southeast Asia. So the next project is the Rio M+ Museum. So during the course when we were working on these smaller museum in the M+ Pavilion, when they're test driving exhibition, we actually started working with the main team of the main space of the full architecture and design collection, including the whole Archigram archive. If you Google, you'll find that there's quite a controversy of Hong Kong trying to get this Archigram archive, but in the end, M+ managed to still get it. So this will be the only place in Hong Kong that you can actually see all the full Archigram archive from now on. So they named the project Think Spaces Interactions. So this is the West Kowloon Cultural District project. Earlier I showed an image of OMA's master plan, which we lost. And this is M+ museum under construction. The interesting fact is this is totally reclaimed land. This land is artificial. And Hong Kong is very well known for reclamation. And the whole Kowloon Cultural District, West Kowloon Cultural District, is actually built on reclaimed land. This is what's right now. This whole kind of, let's say, set of M+ Museum with the conservation building and the office of West Kowloon Cultural District Authority is actually designed by Herzog and de Meuron. As I mentioned before, Chi-Yan, she actually worked around a year on this project. This is the inside. It's a very exciting project for Hong Kong, very beautiful. It just opened on the 12th of November. So you can see from here that the museum is actually a big square floor plate, sort of divided into 4 quadrants. This is outside, designing for the East Galleries. So the waterfront is actually on this side. And Juan can run you guys through on all the rooms. Yeah.
So particularly shares conceptually with the exhibition we were presenting before. As Betty was mentioning, it's quite a large space, around 2,000 square meters of exhibition, and with different topics, we wanted to avoid fatigue, like going from pedestal to pedestal, all of them looking the same. So we were trying to be able to give each room a different character. The first room, these pedestals that they merge each other, mostly because, I mean, like in the beginning, mostly it just came as a result of the circumstances of trying to make room for the circulation, and it gave us this, we think, very interesting geometries that we can see here.
So this is the second room called New Start.
This is the second room. New Start is more the objects exhibited there has more to do with industry, among other things, with industry and industrial design. This is a display of Japanese plywood works, and we were using these pedestals made with aluminum extrusions that could be recycled and put together in different forms for other exhibitions. This is the experimental zone. This is actually showing some
Hikutake,
remains of his Osaka Expo Tower. This is a piece by Norman Fuller, and this actually we don't see here, but this room has a view to the harbor. So the materials here needed to be able to be exposed to the light. And then this is another kind of like open floor area, showing like a diversity of materials, so starting by the postmodern. Here on the side, we can see a sushi bar by
Shiro
Kuramata. That was demounted from its location in Tokyo. It was purchased by M+, and it was mounted back.
A full team of Japanese construction people actually came to set this whole sushi bar up from scratch. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
More views on the space. In this case, the layout, as you could see in the plan earlier, is like rotated the grid 45 degrees. This one.
Yeah, so again, more exhibition projects. We thought it really kind of represents a lot of how we work because exhibition is something we love dearly. We can always go extremely conceptual and try and experiment on a lot of things. And this is the perfect project to share, to talk about how we experiment on materials and almost failed. But it turned out to be a really cool exhibition. Everyone loved it. But we were at the brink of failing on trying new things. So it's called Sincerely Yours, Personal Letters of Tsinghua Scholars. This is extremely interesting because Tsinghua University is basically, if we have to put an analogy, like the Harvard of China. And during the time of modernization of China, the university actually sent a lot of people to the States or to Europe or to Japan to study, to understand the so-called Western or Far East side of the world, and to help modernize China. So during the course, they write a lot of letters to each other, and they kind of form a very tight community discussing literature, sciences, design, all these things. And it has become a collection in Tsinghua University of authentic handwritten letters of so-called Tsinghua scholars. So what we wanted to do here, as shown in this diagram, is to arrange all these letters in conversation with each other. So in one table, they will be discussing either on a topic directly, speaking to each other, or talking on the topic in general. And next to it, you can see that there are also transcripts being kind of put together on one table. And all these tables, well, the idea of this show is to avoid the normal pedestals. We want everything to float, to be as thin and light as possible. Usually when you go to a museum, all the archival materials are shown in very heavy solid pedestal, which is like 1,000 times volume bigger than the paper that you're seeing. So we wanted to eliminate that. And we created this vacuum form acrylic table that is, as I recall, maybe 1.8 meters long and maybe like a meter wide. It was extremely difficult to make. And also with a very limited budget for exhibition, the vacuum forming was very hard to get, it very precise. So in the end, we decided to go for bubbles instead of boxes. And it turned out to be really amazingly fun. And that was when I said it was almost at the brink of failure because we actually wanted to do boxes, but it turned out to be bubbles. And we thought bubbles are actually pretty cool and it worked. So we sort of go ahead with our, in quote, failure, and it turned out to be a really great decision. So here is where the kind of transcript and the handwritten letters were being put side by side, and you can actually walk around the table and read all these. So amidst the letters, there are also these calligraphy scrolls that was part of the collection that the university wanted to show. So we also created these kind of special big pregnant-looking vitrines to encapsulate them. We quite like the result, despite some people do think it's kind of sci-fi-like. We kind of like that tension between something that is very modern, very new, but at the same time something really, really old and traditional. So we like the fact that people actually stand and really read the letters walk around it and understand the conversation. One other exhibition that was extremely big that we worked on is what we call the Chinese scale. It's in the Shanghai Power Station of Art, and it's sized around 4,000 square meter, I believe, yeah. And this is the Power Station of Art in Shanghai. It is actually one of the first contemporary art museum set up in China, and this is in Shanghai. As you can see, it used to be a power station. I think it has been existing for maybe 12, 13 years already. Yeah. And I think Juan would like to talk a little bit about the structure here.
Yeah, this was very interesting for us because we were facing this the huge scale of this building. As you can see, these spaces, which was, I mean, like it was a new approach for us to, I mean, like a new
It's very big, yeah. It's so big that we enter and like, oh, how do we actually deal with this? Because all the objects are so small too. Some of the objects were very small, but most of them are pretty big. You know. It was an interesting tension. You know.
So the title of the exhibition is Challenging Souls, and it was an exhibition getting together Yves Klein, Ding Yi. This is Ding Yi, which actually has quite large scales, Chinese artist, very well known. He has quite large scales paintings. Liu Fan, Korean artist, which has worked in Japan for a long time. This is the Liu Fan Museum by Tadano in Naoshima, and Yves Klein. So it was kind of this dialogue between the three of them in this space. This is the floor plan of the Power Station of Art, and not only the spaces were like quite extra monumental, but also the exhibition rooms were separated by circulation corridors. So the way we approach the exhibition, I mean, this is looking at the dimensions that the corridors have. We thought that perhaps we could actually use those corridors as galleries or as exhibition spaces, and so you could keep the tension while going from room to room. This idea was embraced by the artist, mostly by Liu Fan, which he used this corridor to make like a piece of art, and also he did this stele as well. So then from this disconnected kind of plan, we got into this situation where here we can see this piece was Swimming Pool by Yves Klein. Is a piece that gets redone regularly, but I think this is the largest extension that it has ever had. And then through this corridor would house the Yves Klein archive. And then you would go to this room mixing works by the three artists, and then you would go to this Liu Fan piece. These are dingy towers, and then you could complete the loop. This is the first floor. Here we can see the swimming pool and the dingy paintings, and this stair by Liu Fan. The archive. This is the piece by Liu Fan in the corridor. He made some gravel on the floor, and he placed these two mirror pieces here. And this is also a room where we had like some smaller rooms inside the larger space.
We actually had the pleasure to work with French philosopher Bruno Latour and his collaborator Martin Denord in the Taipei Biennale 2020. This project was conceived during the pandemic, so we actually have not met them in person. We have been doing Zoom meetings every week, We went through a lot of Zoom meetings. Basically, this was all done virtually. But it's very exciting. It's a very interesting project. So Bruno and Martin came to us, and they needed a designer to design a space for them for this this topic called New Diplomatic Encounters. So the Taipei Biennale is named You and I Don't Live on the Same Planet, and it's based on basically how scientists and all the stakeholders of the environment get to come together and discuss, let's say, the very important climate issue, but at the same time showcasing a lot of artwork that is related to this particular issue. So they were working actually Bruno and Martin, we met them in Shanghai when we were working with Hans-Rik Obrist, and they wanted to work again together, and they asked us to conceive a space that can host lectures, workshop, debates, basically as they call it, new diplomatic encounters. So the first thing we did is we researched about how do actually people discuss things, all the what so-called diplomatic spaces, and we looked through all these genres, and in the end we of course jump on it and filter it out and think that there is basically three ways. There's a confronting way, there's a directional way, there's a concentric way. And as a concept, as an idea, we started putting all these architectural kind of moments together as a hybrid, and created this, several options that created a space that you can use however you want in any format to have your diplomatic encounters and discussion. So there are moments that we have started to decide to bring the table outside in the courtyard. That is a continuation of the discussion, but maybe more in like a coffee kind of a talk manner, while inside you can have much more serious debate and lectures. So we went through a lot of iterations. It was a very fun project to work on. They were very receptive of our ideas. And but then unfortunately in the end, because of budget issues, we have to cut the spiral. And we have to cut the outside part out. And also the upward spiral were also being cut off. But we would still like to show you guys the original kind of development of the concept, and we still really like the result very much. This is the nighttime view, and the idea is this one strip of table that basically offers a stool height, chair height, table height, counter height, so on and so forth, and you can create your own encounters and discussion as you wish. So it would become a very popular space, apparently. It was very fun because it also was very ambiguous. Some people don't really know how to use it. And this is a project that was very well received, and we're very happy about it. But at the same time, we were also asked by Jean-Michel Frodon and Rasa Soti, two very famous film critics and curators, to design an installation for them. They curated 20 moving images, 20 movies, and named the installation Interspecies Encounters, and gave us 2 sketches. And they were thinking that they wanted the feeling to be more like almost, how would you describe it?
Yeah, 5 clusters
Yeah.
I mean, each of these clusters would have the kind of a support on the right, and the idea is that the movies displayed in each cluster would describe the interaction or the encounter between different
Water,
animal
earth,
species or different species, different movies around movie history. So looking at this sketch, what we were trying to do, we were trying to avoid to have two layers separating the screen and the technology from the support. So what we did, we created these polyhedrons, which in the nodes they would have the screen. There were 2 species of them that would change slightly from one to another, and just by placing them differently in the space, we will get like the variety and the difference. So this is how the thing looked in reality. In the beginning, we were hoping to be able to have screens on both sides.
Also budget cuts.
But in the end, it was not possible. But we quite liked
the result.
the result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the end of the exhibition presentation. The reason that we want to focus more on exhibition is also because it really helped us to a lot of times experiment concepts. They're very fast. They can be very conceptual, extremely fun. But then our office actually does really big work also. We never stop entering competitions to try to get architecture work. In Asia, we'll explain a little bit more, especially in Hong Kong, it's pretty much dominated by corporate-sized firms doing architectural work. Most smaller-sized firms like ours work a lot on interiors. So today we did not plan to show any interiors. You can check out our website. We have done a lot of retail interiors and some bars and restaurants, pretty fun stuff. But then what we really wanted and strive to do is to work on architectural projects. And I will show you guys one urban design project that we have worked on that we think is extremely interesting. We were selected among 150 teams from the world internationally, and we got into the final and get to present our work actually in Rochester, New York. So it's a competition called Reimagine the Canal in New York State. And it is about studying the New York State canal system, where the famous Erie Canal is. So we named our project Canal 24. So we started, well, I went to Cornell, so I know upstate New York very well. And the Erie Canal is actually part of where I have sort of lived with for 5 years during my time at Cornell. So how do you actually study 800 kilometers of the canal? So we started looking into the locks. So the lock system is something that was intrinsic to the canal. So boats can actually travel along the canal from the east all the way to the west and vice versa. So we identify all these locks, and then we looked into them, zooming in, and all the kind of like historical component, what is so special about it. And we created this really crazy map that we call the Canal Character Map, and identified 24 cities along the Erie Canal, along the 800 kilometers long Erie Canal that we think is very interesting. And we proposed a cultural ecotourism route along the Erie Canal as a way to revitalize the state canal system. Because it's super rundown now, no one actually really go there. It's only in use for leisure, and obviously there's a lot of upstate New York decay, a lot of people moving away from it. And this is sort of a guidebook that we have created along 24 cities, suggesting how far you can drive, what route you can take, what plane you can take, or what boat you can take, in order to go through this whole journey of cultural tourism. So we decipher like 4 categories: the arts as the main thing to drive cultural tourism, and nature. There's a lot of state national park in there, and also to revive local, let's say, industry and communities by offering bed and breakfasts, accommodation, and of course commercial activities. This is actually a reference taken by the Satoji Island in Japan, where they have revitalized all these islands by injecting culture events in it. So earlier Juan showed Liu Fan's museum built by Tadao Ando. It is in one of these islands called Naoshima. I highly recommend, after the pandemic, when anyone have time, you need to go see this. There's a lot of beautiful architecture, artwork, and also nature. So just a quick one. I mean, we did a very, very deep research on every town. And just to show a few, the first town is like Waterford. And the idea is to show it as an urban design strategy project. So we put in projects done by other artists and architects to show how the city can actually start commissioning people to do things, to revitalize, not just through art, but also nature, campsites. At Fairport, adding kind of like more communal-driven swimming pool and for ice skating. Medina, For example, like there's a lot of these industrial buildings that were emptied. How can we commission big work and revitalize the area? Lockpok is actually one of the biggest towns. There's a lot of tourism happening there. And of course, we lost the project. We lost it to a project that is a beer festival in one town. So it was very sad, but we really liked this project. We actually managed to go all the way to New York, and Rochester presented it to the New York Council of Arts, but then the pandemic hit. So one day we actually hope to go back to New York and continue the project. So maybe I can also go through this, which is another competition that we actually worked with our classmate called Minter Lim. His office is in Taipei, and Min, he used to be an associate at Big in Copenhagen, and then he moved to Taipei and opened his own firm. So it was a collaboration between us, an Arab, and the local company at Kuala Lumpur on the new Cyberjaya Convention Center. So this is the site where it's basically marshland. And we were asked to create a master plan, but with a convention center right in the middle as so-called the iconic piece. This is very Asian scale, super big, business, residential, convention, building a new town all in one go. And so we created the whole master plan based on placing the convention center in the middle, also taking hint of the original history in the area, which is a tin mine. And this is the model we created using a similar material that is supposed to be, well, tin mine related. And the idea comes a lot from these kind of like local trees that are called rain trees, because Malaysia is a very, it has convection currents, and it has huge kind of rain in the daytime, and then it's very hot and humid. But at the same time, these kind of like traditional work that they have in Malaysia, we kind of meld all these together to explain the project. It's not how actually we come up with the project, but whenever we present to the government, we sort of have to use this analogy for them to sort of get used to it, to understand this kind of like huge scale. So to run you guys through, convention center as a big box. And we created a landscape over it, and then we carved out each 4 sides of the landscape with different program. As you can see, facing the screen right now is where the public park is. On the right side is where the public terrace is. And then on the left side is the main entrance facing the business zone of the convention center, and then there's the back of house. And on top of it, that inverted pyramid is where we call the auditorium and the meeting area is. That brief does call for not just a convention center, but also a big auditorium space. And the idea is that this public space needs shading. So we inverted the pyramid and create a gigantic umbrella, obviously with a very rigid core in the middle. And we worked together with the director at Arab, who was the engineering director for CCTV. So we met Rory during the time when we were working at OMA, and he supported us on this competition and consulted us that this idea of a cable column composite is possible. So he actually came to meet with us in the office as a mentor, and we discussed about the project. So there is the basement, and then there is the ground level where all these crazy open public activities happen with the convention, exhibition area. And then there is the public surfaces on top of the pyramid. And in the neck, you go up to the auditorium, whether it's an inverted pyramid. We love the plans very much. It's very simple, 6 plans. The concept is very clear. It's a very cardinal, 4 directions, 4 different programs. And then there is a pyramid base and an inverted pyramid on top. So each elevation looks different, monumental, people coming, having fun, world leaders having a walk, and also the public garden. And this is right at the edge of the 2 sides of the pyramid. We lost the project, of course, because of the change of government of Kuala Lumpur. And from that time onwards, we keep losing projects. We have been working on a lot of projects all over the world. Either things are almost getting commissioned, things that are close to Hong Kong, towers that we really want to build, many competitions. We tried in China, all these buildings. We experiment on many architectural concepts. We even tried to learn about how to build hospital and offer new concepts. And of course, Sunjin ByteDance. Headquarters, high profile projects. to the Mangrove Museum. We have tried everything we can, trying to land our architecture project. And during the course of such, we also got quite lucky, but I guess when you work very hard, you get very lucky, that we were commissioned our first building actually only after 2 years of founding the company. It's been the 4th year that we've been working on the King Lam Street commercial development, and right now it's under construction.
Yeah, well, this is it's a project in Hong Kong, in the edge of Kowloon with the New Territories, near Highway, King Lam Street here. This is the project site. There is a highway here, and all the way up there is a hill. This is an industrial area that it's been turned into an office area. There is an important international school nearby. This is an overall view of the project. Actually, we are what the part that we are working in is the bottom part of the project, which is actually something that is very common
in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong,
yeah.
Large projects are like divided into pieces. So projects are very large scale, usually almost pieces of infrastructure, and many different offices work in them at the same time. We were doing this podium. And
so in Hong Kong, there's always this very interesting typology called the podium and tower. The tower itself, the tower here, the Twin Tower, are not designed by us. It's designed by our executive architect. So we were commissioned to just do the bottom, which is called the podium. The podium is a hybrid piece of architecture that is being usually shoved in the bottom of 2 towers or 1 tower, and they have a mix of program. A lot of it are commercial, meaning shopping or like F&B, retail-based. But in our project, we actually have a very special program, and we would like to share with you a video, a 2-minute video. We recently won a very, very big real estate property award. We got a silver award, and interestingly enough, every single firm that was in the ceremony are probably a corporate-sized firm, and we were very likely the smallest firm that got this award. It means a lot to us because it is to kind of verify the ability to do big-scale work, and this is the video we actually submitted. Sorry guys, we realize that you can't hear the sound, correct? Oh, sorry about that. How do we make the volume work? I actually don't know how to. Yeah. It's okay, I'll continue. Yeah. So there is this split podium, and in between, we put a landscape in between. Yeah. And we call it the feature step, and it's a parametric stair that connects the 2 towers together. And from that, we pixelate the landscape and make a new landscape connecting the podium on both sides. So to extend the green from the back and also between 2 towers. Real estate is very rare in Hong Kong. It's very, very expensive in Hong Kong. So public spaces is extremely rare. So the gesture here is to create as much public spaces as possible. And also from above the tower, when you look down, you actually get to see this feature step. We've been spending most of the time trying to figure out the structure and the engineering of the feature steps. This is the module that hosts all the planters and all these things. So we create this continuous landscape so we can actually, connect the 2 towers and connect all these programs together. And what is really important is that the feature step actually hosts a auditorium. There's the upper auditorium and the lower auditorium. that can be combined or separated. So it's a very flexible space in a commercial building. Together with this, the development actually really feeds to the neighborhood that is old industrial area now becoming a grade A office area, providing a lot more, let's say, public spaces and amenities. So sorry about the sound. I didn't realize it doesn't work. And it was a really great opportunity for us to get such a big scale project as a very young firm. Again, we are only on our 6th year of founding. On our 2nd year, we started working on this project, and now it's under construction. And of course, sometimes we also question ourselves. It's this very Hong Kong situation of separating a big piece of architecture into various pieces that get commissioned to various architects. It's a very interesting way to work as architects because you usually get a single standing building yourself. But in this situation, we are being put in a moment that we need to collaborate. We need to work with other architects in order to make something together. And it's been a very fulfilling and interesting experience. We've also learned a lot about very stringent building codes in Hong Kong. The team of the client side is also extremely professional. They have a whole project management team that are all architects. And this is a very, very Hong Kong way of how development companies work. So we also work with very, very hands-on with engineers. We actually 3D printed all the structure ourselves and discussed with engineers. Engineers in Hong Kong in general are more conservative. They usually give you thicker members than you really need. But then we were always being placed in a position to, in a way, challenge and stretch how far this can go. We're very grateful. This is a picture taken last month, and the structure is coming up very, very fast. We assume that this is actually going to finish hopefully maybe the beginning of 2024. Yeah, so very exciting for us. We're an office of like 16 people right now, and in Hong Kong, this is considered to be a small size scale office. We would like to speak about the last project that is also very meaningful for us, also currently under construction, and Juan will give you a bit more insights on this.
Yes, very fast, because despite the project is already under construction, we started working on it quite recently.
A year ago.
So it's an event space in the rooftop of Sky City. Sky City is a mega.
This is not our design
project very near the airport, and we are doing this event space, which is located in this area here.
So again, this hybridization, in this very big 4 million square feet of retail entertainment next to the airport, there are so many different architects involved, and we are only one of them to be working on this rooftop garden. So can you go back? This one is actually the original design.
The original design. Yeah. So we were commissioned to do an event space here, and we turned it into, we were thinking that perhaps a circular geometry could be more receptive to any event that would be happening inside, rather than having the more Cartesian kind of perimeter. So we were proposing on one side have this new envelope ground, and at the same time, as you can see in this axonometry, we were thinking of strategies of how to expand the perception of the space. So we are developing this mirror facade, which produces, we think, quite interesting reflections. So this is a model of it where we can, we can test how this perhaps can look in the future. And yeah, I think this is the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Sorry it was long.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was actually absolutely fine. So you were very, very in time. So that was perfect. So, well, thank you very much. I think it was very interesting and very refreshing because you're showing stuff that we're not that used to seeing in our conferences. So usually people show typical good stuff, and you're working more in the periphery sometimes of the profession, but also in this interstitial condition that Hong Kong has. And I think it was very nice that you started with this pavilion that was squeezed in between, a big lobby, and then you ended with an enormous piece that was squeezed under two towers. I think it's, not having been in Hong Kong, I feel it's very Hong Kongese to be honest.
That's a really, this is a very great way to put it. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. We have to maneuver, always maneuver. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch to Spanish for a brief moment. No sé si alguien tiene preguntas para nuestros invitados. Si alguien quiere preguntarlo, puede hacerlo bien de viva voz interviniendo o puede dejarlo en el chat y se lo trasladamos. Si no, voy a comenzar yo. So, I wanted to ask you just a quick question. I was chatting with Juan yesterday, and I was telling him that I find, although you haven't shown much of interior space or refurbishment, or one thing that I'm very interested in is when you're working with an envelope that's already there and you have to alter it somehow. That I think that one interesting thing is that architectural strategies and architectural moves are very straightforward. So you say, okay, I'm going to open a window here, I'm going to tear down this wall, or I'm going to build a wall here, and everything has a very direct and very quick impact on what's there. And that's something that I find very interesting about working with existing material. And also you're doing a lot of that, and you're doing a lot of exhibition stuff. And I wanted to ask you whether you focus, you're using exhibition as a jump off point to build other stuff, or you're really interested in this area as an ongoing element of your practice.
Well, I think it started as a circumstance, as a lucky circumstance, but we love working with exhibitions, and we would like to continue working on them if we can.
So Juan is particularly fond about exhibition. I like it too. So why do you like it so much, actually?
I like it because actually, there are projects that happen. Like architecture in general is like extremely slow process that can die at any given point. It's very fragile, always at the edge of dying. Whilst on the other side, exhibitions happen really fast. So they're like very super high, quite quick pace.
It's like CrossFit for design.
It also allows you. You are able to work with very interesting people on topics which you really, usually you don't know about, and it gives you like an opportunity to learn about these things, to approach new problems. Usually it allows you to be extremely conceptual. You could say that could happen when doing retail as well, but with retail there is always this these constraints that or practicalities that come after that usually dampen the concept a little bit more, which usually doesn't happen with exhibitions. And also they get the good thing is that after they happen they disappear, which is also I think is a good thing.
You can't visit them
because sometimes you do things well, but some other times not so well.
I guess you like that.
So your mistakes don't haunt you, right? That's the point.
So every exhibition project, our IP. Well, for me, it's what I really enjoy about exhibition. Adding to what Juan said, I think it's also that idea of you usually work with very nerdy, artsy, or cultural related people, and you can really speak very high concept with them, and then you can really test and run those experiments with them. There are people who also are willing to take a little more risks. For example, the vitrine we show you guys that we made for Sincerely Yours exhibition, the curator was extremely supportive, and it was very interesting because in the end, he was like, are you sure this is going to work? And the opening was a week later. I was like, yeah, of course. And then he's like, if this is not going to work, you know, you and I are in big trouble because the president is coming. And I'm like, no problem. We'll get it work. And, you know, I hang up and then I was like, damn, we have to make this work. And but then this kind of spectrum of being able to take risks, willing to take risks, a lot of the times we find it with collaborators and exhibitions. I think because also there are people who are in this spectrum of research or, you know, looking into a lot of cultural practices and trying to find or claim new grounds in what we're doing. So that becomes very refreshing compared to when you do architecture. It takes you 7 years to finish a building. And exhibition, the shortest is probably 4 weeks for us. And it's quite a big difference.
Okay, so so that was one question, and then I wanted to ask you also, because you showed a lot of competitions that you lost. And I guess that many of the projects that you showed is because they were competitions that you won, at least part of them, right?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's actually a good point. Actually, the King Lam Street project was sort of not really a set up competition, but we have to went through a vetting process. Yeah.
So what part what part do competitions have in your day-to-day practice? Do you do lots of competitions, or is it something that has been going on and off, depending on the amount of load work you have in the office?
On and off, definitely. I think competition is, if I might boldly say it, is really a drain of intelligence. It's such a big waste of time and resources because in Asia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a very, very different system than the European system. It's mostly, let's say, dominated by very big firms. It's not a way for young firms to actually get their first building like in Europe. For us, we are doing a lot of competition, as you put it. Sometimes it's because we have a downtime and we want to keep exercising. You know, it's like going to gym. We want to keep designing. We want to keep ourselves in check. We still want to be experimental. There are ideas that we want to test for different spectrum of genre of architecture. We don't know anything about hospital, but then we decided to try on this hospital competition because we think it's probably interesting to learn about it and think of new ways of dealing with hospitals. But of course, we know we won't win the competition because hospitals are basically dominated by firms who has been building hospitals in the last 30 years. So for us, competition is, for me, it's a lot about getting trained, you know, getting training so we keep ourselves in check, trying to keep experimenting.
Yes, and also in our case, it has happened a lot that competitions have been used as an opportunity to work with friends.
True.
To collaborate with friends in a project, almost like, I don't know, like going hiking or something like that. I would say, to share an experience together. Again, competitions, they're extreme. It's very, very difficult to win them. And despite we know when we do them, you always get a bit sad when you do them, right? I mean,
I think it depends on what kind of competition. If it's a tender, it's different.
That means you're very happy when you submit them, which is also...
We always say, this is it. This is so good, you know.
So it's most like exercising for for the future. Let's see. So
no, but having said that, I mean, there are also competitions that get won, and in order to win competitions, you need to do competitions. So
yes, that's
Yeah.
So I see that we have a very shy audience. So I'm going to ask just one more question. So from our previous talk, so you're teaching now. 3 members of the office are teaching right now. So do you extrapolate from office work to your teaching? I mean, is it related somehow? Because I mean, I guess yes, but if you could speak a little bit about that, because I think that here in Spain it's less so. I mean, it's less common that you can have a direct some permeability from your practice to your teaching. So how does this happen in your case?
Actually, I don't think it's so related, in my opinion. For me, but then the spirit and the methodology is very related. Yeah. The spirit of really, as I mentioned, the competition we did for the hospital is like we want to learn about it, and for teaching, I think we're interested in a certain topic and we want to dive a little more deeper into it, but it does not necessarily feed into the work we are doing right now, but it does feed into, number one, a broad spectrum of topic that we're interested in arts and culture. That's why we're teaching a design studio related to that. Number two, we're experienced in building arts and cultural work. So we also feel a little more well-versed in teaching a studio on that. And number three, I think it's also again, for me, it's training too. The methodology of how we share with students, how we teach, is very similar to how we work in the office. It's very research-driven, critique-driven, review-driven. So that for me is a very kind of a refreshing kind of exercise when I teach. But I think Juan might feel differently.
No, similarly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But because of what you're saying, I also think the teaching has a resonance not only in the methodology but also in the topics that we try to deal with in the studio.
Yeah. Well, actually, we would like to learn more about how can we merge the two better, like the professional work and the teaching spectrum. So far, we haven't yet really related the two very tightly. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if no sé si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta.
I would like to ask. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Back to exhibition design. Could you explain a bit more about the relationship between curators and you and the exhibition designers? Is it do they really give ideas? Do they give design ideas, or is it more a constraint? Do they normally help to the design, or is it sometimes that you would prefer not to collaborate and have more freedom?
I think, I mean, we have found like a very different circumstances working with curators.
Most of them are very receptive to our thinking.
Absolutely, but in different ways, I would say. Like, usually, I think it would be very difficult to work in an exhibition design without.
So the curators usually come with their vision, right? Their curatorial vision, what they wanted to show, the topic. They usually give us a very brief. Let's say, like, this is what I want, the vision is this is what I have in mind. They usually give us a write-up. And very seldom the curators we met, I think, gave us a very straight, kind of like, this is how I want it to be. I think when curators work with us, when they pick us, they know that we have a lot of ideas, and we usually manage to interpret the curatorial vision very well spatially. But of course, as Juan said, there are different spectrum. There are some curators with a little bit more desire in this particular zone. They wanted this object needs to sit next to this object, but that's part of the curatorial vision. And we try to not override their vision, and we try to actually uplift the curatorial theme and vision through our design. Yeah. You want to add something?
No, it's like the spatial expression of the
spatial expression of the
curatorial direction or ideas or
So for example, Shanghai project, unfortunately we didn't show it with Hans and Dr. Yongwu Li. There were actually not much of a spatial condition they asked for. They really give us a list of artists and the objects, and we sort of created the route and the ideas, and then we presented to them. They loved it, as an overarching idea, and then of course they start tweaking a little bit. I want to put this artist next to this artist. So in a way, we always create a base for the curator to edit. Yeah. And we all work very well together. I guess they also have seen other work that we have done, and to be very honest, words of mouth, we have been recommended by other curators to work with other curators too. So so far it's been very, very fun, yeah, working with various curators.
You are muted, Colo.
Yeah, sorry for that. So I don't know if there are any more questions. Otherwise, it's 2:20, so I think it's about time we close the session. So thank you so much for your talk. It was really enjoyable, and actually I would love to have you here again. So we should keep in touch, because I would like to see all the other stuff that you left out of the conference. So thank you so much. Perhaps we can follow up this conversation in another chat, another private chat in the next minutes. That will be fine. We can solve some issues regarding the conference. Bueno, muchas gracias a todos por asistir, y bueno, entiendo que esta charla se colgará en los próximos meses en nuestra página web, de manera que supongo que en el futuro podrán disfrutarla, que es que no han podido asistir hoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.